Mr. K, how are you today, pal? Okay?
I'm 60. That's how I am.
That age bothered me. I don't know if it bothered you. Does 60, that number 6, does that bother you?
It did bother me because, Chris, you know me. We've known each other a long time. I think like I'm about 12 years old in my head, so I cannot believe that I'm 60. And for the longest time, you think 60 is old, and now you're at that number. But, I have young kids, so that keeps me young.
It's important indeed. Okay, lots to do with the Yankees. I had Boone on, fortunately enough, Friday. He gave me some good stuff. One of them, let's do the bullpen first. Chapman's going to remain his closer. He has no issues with him psyche after those 2 years in a row with home runs. They got Britton sitting there. Break down the Yankee bullpen for me. What do you see as this season moves along? Go ahead.
Well, right now, Britain can close with anybody. So if Chapman has to have a day off, the Yankees have as good a closer as anybody in Britain. You've got Chad Green that you could use him the way you want as well. Darren O'Day is an interesting weapon. Obviously most of the hitters in baseball are right-handed, and with the three-batter rule, that type of pitcher could be valuable if he's right-handed. The left-handers that are on the market right now, it shows you the three-batter rule is affecting their market. But right now, those are the four guys at the Yankee bullpen that are set. And I think that they're going to see how the starting rotation plays out, because some of their guys will actually have stuff that could transfer into the bullpen. I also don't think that they're quite done on the free agent market. There's still a lot of free agents available that are relief pitchers. The Yankees have $9 million to spend before they get to 210. So I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up one more arm, and then the guys that don't make it into the rotation will be the guys that end up being in the bullpen.
But the issue with Chapman is confidence. You think the manager and the team still feels that in big spots he can get the big outs?
I think they do, Chris, and I believe that obviously Chapman, when you're a reliever, you have to let that stuff go. But it is somewhat concerning because in the last 3 years with the Yankees, he's given up two, if you can actually call it, two season-ending home runs. And people forget, although the Cubs won the World Series, he gave up that home run to Rajai Davis in the World Series that could have given the Indians the win as well. So those are three monstrous home runs that he's given up in big spots. Now, maybe, Yankee fans are a little bit spoiled because they had the greatest of all time in Mariano Rivera. When Mariano Rivera got beat, he did not get beat by a big home run. He usually gave up a little dunker or something like that. But to give up these big home runs, that's a little problematic. And I've actually talked to some people with the Yankees about this as well. Although Chapman is a tremendous pitcher, the thing that used to differentiate him from other pitchers is he threw harder than anybody else. He threw 105 miles an hour. He doesn't throw 105 miles an hour, sometimes 101, 102. And although that seems extreme, everybody throws hard. Everybody that comes out of a bullpen throws hard. So he's got to really concentrate a lot on his secondary pitch, which is a slider. And sometimes the slider could be hung. You can't hang a 105-mile-an-hour fastball.
All right, how about Sanchez behind the plate? The Yankees are going to give him another go here, although they weren't pleased with his comments about how he should have started Game 5 against Tampa. But this is do or die time now for Gary Sanchez. Give me your take on that. Go ahead.
Well, I think the Yankees, one of the complaints that I get on my radio show, they didn't make many changes. Well, they didn't make many changes because they really sincerely felt that they had a World Series winning team last year, except for injuries, which they hope will stop. And then, Gary Sanchez hitting the 140s. I agree with you. This is the last chance saloon for Gary, but how long is that saloon going to be open? Is it going to be a 2-month situation where the Yankees will pull the plug? Then they have to switch to Kyle Higashioka. Will it be the whole year? I think Gary knows this. He's been working hard. And one of the misconceptions about Gary Sanchez is he doesn't care, he doesn't work hard. He works very, very hard. He does care, and he probably cares too much. I think what the Yankees have to do this year, and I think this is the plan, is they put so much emphasis on making him an outstanding defensive catcher. And I think he's taken some of the worry about behind the plate to the plate as a hitter, and I think that's affected him because the thing that made Gary Sanchez such a valuable piece for the Yankees is that he was a catcher that could hit 35 to 40 home runs every single year. When he stops doing that, well, he's not that great of a defensive catcher that you could look the other way. So if he could hit 250 and they take some of the responsibility away from the plate, all the emphasis on framing, down on one knee, things like that, they've got to pick and choose what the most important thing defensively they want him to work on, otherwise free his mind.
100%. I think they've scared him off there. It's a good point. Torres as shortstop, you expect better defensive play, a little better shape, knows, in fact, what the season's going to be up to, no split spring training. They're going a long way with him. He's going to be their shortstop. And it's not so much what he does April through September, Mike. It's what he does in a big game. Is he going to make every play necessary in a big postseason game? That's where he hurt him even last year in Game 5 when he made that error. Give me your thoughts on him. Go ahead, defensive.
Well, one of the things that set him back last year, Chris, is that a lot of players did not know if there was going to be baseball. There was a back and forth with the union and the owners, trying to come to an agreement before they came to the 60-game season. One thing I will tell you, that when we were down in spring training, the Yes Network crew, the first time, he was in great shape. He really worked hard. He does work hard. He believes in his craft. He wants to be great. But I think he fell into a trap that a lot of players fell into. They got out of shape because they didn't realize whether or not there was going to be baseball and when it was going to start. So they kind of went back a little bit on their conditioning. I think he's serviceable at shortstop. He's not a great defensive shortstop. He's not Ozzie Smith. He's not Omar Vizquel. I don't think he's ever going to be that. But he can be a great shortstop because he's a great hitter. So if he just makes the easy plays that are hit at him, the ground balls, makes those outs, they'll be fine. The diving plays, the pirouettes, things like that, I don't know if you're going to see that. But, the Yankees' fallback plan, if they didn't get DJ LeMahieu, and they knew they were going to get him, but if something fell apart that they didn't get him, the Yankees were going to get a shortstop, and they were going to move Gleyber Torres to second. But now with DJ signed to a 6-year deal, Gleyber Torres has to become a proficient shortstop defensively.
All right, they're throwing enough resumes at the wall with this rotation. Kluber, the kid from Pittsburgh. I mean, obviously they're going to keep their fingers crossed on the young kids too. We're not going to know that answer until October with Kluber, specifically with health. What's your take on that Yankees starting rotation, Michael, after Garrett Cole?
Well, you got the great one at top, and that takes some of the pressure off with Garrett Cole, and he certainly lived up to every aspect of what he was supposed to be last year. Kluber, Chris, if he could be 80% of what he was with the Indians when he was healthy, this is a home run for the Yankees. And I like the gamble on Jameson Taillon simply because of the fact his last healthy year, he was tremendous. So he's coming off a second Tommy John surgery. He's changed a little bit on how he throws, takes some of the stress off his shoulder. I think that could be a good gamble as well. The Yankees have him at a very low price, and they have him for 2 years before he becomes a free agent. He's very tight. With Garrett Cole, they're kind of two pitching nerds. They love to talk the science of the sport, and I think that's going to do very well for him. And then the young player, Jordan Montgomery is a very, very good number 4. He actually could be a pretty decent number 3. So there's 4 spots right there. And then you have a lot of the young players to flesh it out. Will it be a Davy Garcia? Will it be a Schmidt? And then at the end of the summer, you get reinforcements, Chris, because Luis Severino is going to come back. And before Severino had the Tommy John surgery, bottom line is this: he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. So if he comes back to what he was, all of a sudden that's a very daunting, very tough rotation going into the postseason. One other thing, Chris. The Yankees last year, their pitching was a shambles, and they almost got to the American League Championship Series. This year, if this all works out, the gambles that they're taking, they won't have to go to a 1-inning opener in Game 2 of a big series, and I think that was a big problem last year.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well done there. All right, how about the little, it's pianos on their shoulders a little bit. They haven't won in 11 years, 12 years. I'm sure Mr. Steinbrenner wasn't happy that Tampa beat them, up in the regular season and in the postseason with a very limited payroll. Boone's been there a while, hasn't won yet, hasn't been to a World Series yet. I don't want to say it's that big a deal. This is not Dodgers from '88 like last year, but I would think pressure is building some on this Yankee crew here to at least win a pennant and have a chance to win another championship. It has been a while for this great team. What's your take on that? Let me hear.
Well, you know what, Chris, you were in New York. Obviously, I was here. We both come from this area. George Steinbrenner bought the team in 1973, and his operating mantra was either we win a championship or the season's a failure. And I think that has hung over the Yankees. Yankees have had very good years. A couple of years ago, they won 103 games under Aaron Boone with an awful lot of injuries, but they have not completed the task. Hal has backed off a little bit, Hal Steinbrenner, George's son, from the championship or bust, but the organization still operates with that assumption. If I'm Hal Steinbrenner, I would be pretty angry. I had a $250 million payroll last year. $250, Chris. And the Tampa Bay Rays with a $50 million payroll knocked me out of the playoffs. That cannot be a great feeling for Hal Steinbrenner and the Steinbrenner family. And so now, Hal Steinbrenner said, from what I hear, let's get under 210, the tax threshold, and you should be able to do it. And you know what? Brian Cashman and his crew, who are very bright and very innovative, they should be able to do it. And right now, I look at this and I say the two best teams in the American League are the Chicago White Sox and the New York Yankees. I think the Yankees are slightly ahead of the White Sox. And when you look at projected WAR, Chris, the Yankees have a 51. The number 2 team in Major League Baseball is the Dodgers at 46, and they're the world champions. So the Yankees have a team right on paper that could win a championship. But as Aaron Boone said
Absolutely.
last Friday, the difference between winning a championship and getting knocked out in the first round is razor thin.
Very thin. And last thing, Mike, the Yankees missed the fans last year. 46,000 a day gives that ballpark great energy. You know that better than anybody. I think you'll see some fans this year, but what's your take on an empty Yankee Stadium, how it affected your team, and maybe we get some fans back here in 2021? Let me get your take on that.
I think it affected everybody, Chris. It was just a very, I think Aaron Boone has said it best, very heavy season. There was a darkness to it. There wasn't the level of joy that you usually get with summer baseball. You just looked around. It was almost dystopian. And, if the broadcasters felt that, I'm sure the players felt it as well. Because Buck Showalter told me there are days that a ball club needs to be motivated by the fans lifting them up. He said there are big games that you're going to get up no matter what because it's a big game. But when it's the third game of a 4-game set against a team that's not really your rival, you need some kind of artificial lifting. And the Yankees always have that with a great fan base that rises up and takes them with them. And I think a lot of teams are affected, but the teams that play with big crowds, those are the teams that got affected the most. Also, teams that would come into Yankee Stadium and would be intimidated by 46,000 people, all of a sudden they weren't intimidated because that ballpark was the same as every other ballpark. So I'm crossing my fingers, Chris, that fans do return. I think all sports need it.
Good job there, Mike. Well done. Keep up the good work. Happy birthday. Thanks for a few here today.